Did you know that our best dishes are made from the simplest ingredients? Look, flour, water, meat, fatty tail, onion. You can do without potatoes and you can do without pumpkin. If you want to make really delicious manti. In old books on Uzbek cuisine, it says, take half a kilo of flour, 1 cup of water, 1 egg, and it was written correctly. This amount of dough is enough for one family. But today I decided to make a lot of manti because I want to prepare almost all the most popular varieties. Manti, I really asked the representatives of northern Kazakhstan not to take offense at me, where they say not manti but manti. I know about this feature, but let's not argue. So 4 eggs, 1 liter of water. Here I have 2 liksh flour, which I will gradually add. But first let's add the liquid part. Eggs, salt and water are mixed evenly. And now we add the flour. How much will it take? This is exactly that phrase. What does it mean? We'll need about 2 kilo? Yes, I know, but it could be 1.8 kilo or maybe 1.9 kilo. Flour comes in different types, and everyone who specifies the exact number of grams of flour simply doesn't understand cooking very well. Fresh flour absorbs one amount of moisture, while flour that has been sitting for a while absorbs a different amount of moisture. Besides, the grind can also be different. The dough should rest for at least 30-40 minutes. It will become much softer, much more pliable. In the meantime, let's chop the filling. We'll chop it, although I can say that when I was a kid, in my youth, I used to eat manti, the filling for which was made using a meat grinder. They were also very tasty. Manti. In short, it's better to make manti than not to make them. I took 1 kilo of meat. This is very good meat, very tender, lean meat. Of course, you can also cook with beef, and you can cook with pork if you eat pork, for example. You might consider adding spices. Well, you know, we had Russians, Ukrainians, and Germans living in Fergana. In short, those who eat pork made manti with pork, and that was also very, very tasty. The most important thing is to forget about the dietitian's recommendations and add a sufficient amount of fat. I'm taking lamb. Fat tail. 0.5 kg. I had 1 kilogram of meat. As for the onion, I might add approximately 700 grams, maybe 800 grams. In general, the amount of onion directly depends on the quality of the meat. If the meat is quite coarse and tough, then the manti will need to be cooked for a long time. Sometimes manti are cooked for up to 45 minutes. Then, you can add more onion. But if the meat is this tender and young, you don't need too much onion. 700-800 grams, I have to tell you, that's a little onion. That's just enough to make the manti absolutely perfectly juicy. I'm working with some very large numbers. 1 kilo of meat, 200-300 gram of fat, 300-400 gram of onion, 1 kilo of meat, 200-300 gram of fat, and 300-400 gram of onion. The manti will turn out great. The most important thing is to cut everything into the same size cubes. About like this. You can also save on meat. Manti evolved in Uzbekistan by adding pumpkin and potatoes, enhancing taste economically. Later, when potatoes became widespread in Uzbekistan and Central Asia, they started adding potatoes. And it turned out that these varieties of manti, which were created purely for economic reasons, turned out to be very tasty. Many people loved these manti, and now they don't recognize manti without pumpkin. You can make manti just with pumpkin. Many people have come to love these manti, and now they don't recognize manti without pumpkin. You can make delicious manti just with fresh pumpkin. Onions, take them carefully. Fry it well and aromatic until it reaches a beautiful golden color in melted butter. And this onion and thinly sliced pumpkin will make an excellent, very tasty filling for the manti. In spring, you can also use wild garlic, especially if you can find it growing, and also some lightly sautéed onions with it. This is an amazing filling. In Uzbekistan, every spring around April, officials head to the foothills. They gather these wild herbs. I don't know their names, but they make manti with them. It turns out really delicious. And after a long winter, when your body craves vitamins, manti with greens is just a delight. It turns out very tasty. And after a long winter, when your body craves vitamins, manti with greens is just a delight. In short, everything should be cut into small cubes, whether it's onion, potato, or pumpkin. You can watch the ads for now, and in the meantime, everything will be ready. So, we have all the ingredients for the filling on the table. Here is the meat with fat. An onion, quite a lot of onion. And the first ingredient I would like to talk to you about is pumpkin. If you're going to cook the pumpkin with the meat, use this kind. And if you're going to make manti just with pumpkin, they also turn out really tasty. Use this kind. Well, for now, let's add the onion to the pumpkin. As you can see, the onion is also chopped into fairly large cubes. The meat and fat this onion amount is... Let's add the coffee. And let's add the meat and fat. You know what? It's never too late to add potato. Exactly the same proportions. Maybe one onion perhaps for a couple of large potatoes or so. Just like that, meat and fat, meat and tail fat. Well, let's add all the remaining onion to the meat and fat. These manti will be the most classic, the real deal. Manti should have a lot of onion, otherwise their taste won't be right, it won't be authentic, and it will be incorrect. I understand it's incorrect. I think many people believe the more meat you add, the tastier it is. People still don't know what delicious food is. These people don't know We added onion not just out of meat economy, but also for a few other reasons. Just one, and for the sake of the flavor, the essence it provides. Well then, we just need to season everything. I think that for this amount of minced meat, it will take about this much. Half a tablespoon of salt. Half a tablespoon here approximately, a little more here, just a bit more, about this much. A heaping tablespoon or so. Black pepper. You can also add red pepper, you can add hot pepper, you can add some dried herbs, that's all acceptable. But black pepper is classic. It's absolute classic in manti. But black pepper is classic. This is absolute classic in manti. Pia, and finally cumin. And where would we be without cumin when we're talking about Uzbek cuisine? Well, you can use whole cumin, but in this case I can tell you that ground cumin works much better. A little more here, about a teaspoon each, and that's it. Mix it all together, and maybe even squeeze it with your hands so the onion releases its juice. And the pieces of meat can marinate in that juice. Want to show you. So there were 2 kilos of flour, and now there are 200 gree left. Just the right amount needed for the filling. I'll show you 2 ways to roll out the dough. For the first method, you need to roll a piece of dough into a more or less even sausage. The dough is soft. Let's add a little flour and knead it some more. And now you stretch that lump into a sausage. Cut it for the future pastries. I read comments that I would roll the dough even thinner. Rolled out. Listen, if there's not enough dough and way too much, let's say if there's more meat, that won't make the dumplings tastier. Right, meat makes dumplings. Then they have the right proportions of meat, And meat, manti dough stretches, so it shouldn't be too thin. The dough from manti should not be too thin. The dough pieces of this size are just right. As filled, they'll stretch a bit more. You cut the dough into pieces. Some pieces are thicker, some thinner, resulting in manti of different sizes. The manti will also turn out different. One is a little bigger, the other is a little smaller. Maybe it will taste exactly the same. It will taste exactly the same, but it doesn't look very professional. So, I want to show another way to roll out the dough for manti. Generously dust the board with flour. Generously dust the board with flour. Dust the dough itself with flour. Dust the dough itself with flour. Grease the rolling pin with flour and roll out one large sheet. The rolled out sheet of dough has more or less the same thickness. And here I have a ring. You can take a suitable glass and, using any shape, cut the sheets of dough for the manti to be absolutely the same thickness and size. And that's it. We lift up the excess dough. Make sure to sprinkle flour on the remaining dough pieces first so they don't stick together. Stack them up. And we have everything ready to shape the manti. Of course, it's better to remove the plastic wrap from the dumplings. If you're not going to shape the manti right now, put them in the fridge. Before you start shaping the manti, be sure to grease the steamer rack with oil. Some call it a manti steamer. That word doesn't sound tasty to me. In Uzbek, it's called manti katkana. When you're greasing the manti steamer, don't forget to place a dish underneath. Otherwise, half of the oil will just end up on the table as it will drip through the holes. Masters of making manti, well, there are some in Bakhtan. They only make manti. They don't do anything else. They don't shoot videos. They don't write books. They don't take pictures of food. They only cook manti. Don't do anything. Don't shoot videos, write books, or take pictures. Make manti. Take dough. They only make manti. They somehow take the dough. Just like that on your hands. They put everything here and they get it done so quickly. It turns out so beautifully. Not for me. And it's not like that for you either. So, just calmly place the dough down. Where are we in such a hurry to go? We're not working for money. We work, generally speaking, only for our own pleasures. Now look, we take the dough by the two edges and pinch it in the middle. We pinched it well. Now these two edges, it should come off mold. There can be different shapes of manti. I don't know, dozens, hundreds as far as your imagination can take you. You know, some people make manti that are really beautiful. But I want to make 3 different kinds of manti right now. So the ones with meat will look like this. Manti with potatoes. I'm going to shape them a little differently. You might even find this way of making manti easier. First, we just pinch it closed like a regular pie, using our fingers. Well, now we make folds along the resulting ridge. We folded it, pinched it, folded it, pinched it. And that's it. Here it is. How it turns out. Sometimes the meat is lean, and there's no fat tail or any lard. But you don't need to. If you're making manti with potatoes, then add a small piece of butter to them. It will turn out even tastier. The ones with meat ready, potatoes ready. The most delicious ones are left with pumpkin. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the minced meat with potatoes released a lot of juice. Potatoes are actually surprisingly juicy. And pumpkin is also a juicy product, but it releases its juice when heated. A spoon, 1.5 spoons of filling on top. It's fine. Sochi is stretching out, and it turns out to be just the right thickness. How many minutes do you boil manti? First of all, the water should be boiling very well. So, find a gas burner that will make it boil vigorously. It's going to boil vigorously now. Cooking takes 40 to 45 minutes. The dough should be thicker and firmer to stay intact. Tender meat cooks in 3 minutes in a pan. In this case, the dough needs to be made thicker, and the dough also needs to be made harder so that it doesn't fall apart. And such tender meat as we had, if you just throw it in a frying pan, it only takes 3 minutes. You can eat it in such small pieces. The steamer will be ready in about 25 minutes. You can eat it in such small pieces. Here, the steamer will be ready very well in 25 minutes. Keep track of the time. In Korea, they usually boil manti for approximately 7 minutes. You also need to know how to open the dumplings. Otherwise, some people say, "We made dumplings, everything was so good." We opened them, took them out, and they all fell apart. Why? Well, there might be questions about the method, but there's another mistake that many make when opening the dumplings. Don't take them out right away. Wait, don't rush. First, remove it from the water. Put it on some dish, on a tray, etc. Air out the manti carefully until the steam from the dumplings nearly stops. In addition, how can you thoroughly check if the dumplings are ready or not? Yes, touch the dough with your fingers. Is it sticking? No, definitely isn't sticking. That's it. The dumplings are ready, I assure you. Dumplings are a fast food dish. They used to be made and eaten at markets. They place the dumpling rack down in the bottom row, and the upper rows are lifted up. By the time this row reaches the top, everything will be ready. Look, this dumpling is completely intact. And you can't do without a cube of butter here. These dumplings won't stick together. But still, with butter smeared on it, I swear, it looks a bit more cheerful, more appetizing. We're going to place the pumpkin dumplings on one side. Dumpling. We have 3 types of dumplings in one dish. Oh, what a lunch we're going to have. Dumplings with potatoes. They look more modest, but in reality, they're just as tasty as those with pumpkin. I love dumplings with potatoes. I remember in 1985, cooperatives were allowed. The neighbors across the street, there was a Uyghur family. And they opened a cafe and said, "Come to us for dumplings." In our family, dumplings have always been delicious, but I have to tell the truth. I'll tell you the truth. The most delicious dumplings I've ever had in my life were from those Uyghurs. And finally, the third type of dumplings. Purely meat. Oh, I apologize. Meat, onion, the most proper. How to serve dumplings. You can take katik, well, you could say it's regular yogurt, without strawberries and without any fruit pieces. And add a little salt, a bit of pepper, you can add some dill and garlic, and serve it with the dumplings. It's going to be delicious. We always served it with regular sour cream. And if you've made dumplings, you don't need to put anything else on the table. For God's sake, let people finally have their fill of dumplings. Well, put some salad on the table like tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, just for decoration so there's something to snack on. And wish each other a good appetite.